The Battle of Hattin is significant to our world today, although the conflict took place 900 years ago. It is a dichotomy of two clashing worlds, and how these worlds are still at loss to understand one another. The Battle of Hattin was a climactic point in the struggle for the Holy Lands. Crusader armies had controlled the area from the First Crusade in 1099, when they captured Jerusalem, until the end of the Second Crusade in 1187. Muslim territory was successfully occupied and controlled by the Latins. The Muslims grew restless of paying taxes and tolls. Under the leadership of Saladin, the Muslim population was organized and united under one banner. The conflict between the two sides arose in leadership of Saladin of the Muslim army and Guy de Lusignan of the Christian army. It is the Battle of Hattin which determined the balance of power in the Holy Lands. The Muslim army. Saladin's army was comprised of native people, both Arab, Kurdish, from Syria, Palestine, Iraq, and Turkey. They believed that they were occupied and the Europeans were invaders. The Muslim army was highly organized and much more efficient than the Crusader army in aspects of tactics, structure, and traditions. The Muslim army preferred lighter, more maneuverable troops than the bulky, heavily armored Crusading army. Saladin continued to use the ancient raiding tactics of the Bedouin tribes. He updated the manner in which these raids were carried out. He also introduced new tactics, such as the flagrant retreat, digging trenches, and impenetrable defensive structures. In siege warfare, Saladin used various stone throwers and built rams to crack open fortified Crusader strongholds. He then employed highly armored professional troops to wipe out the remaining enemy. Upon learning that knights provided the backbone for the Latin army, the Muslims began to shoot down the knights' horses, leaving the warriors on foot. The Crusaders were no match for the Muslims' armies. In the blazing June sun, with minimal access to water, Saladin managed to lure the Christian army out of the safety of Jerusalem in order to put the Latin army in an unfavorable position. The Crusader army. The Crusader army was comprised of soldiers from England, France, Germany, and other areas of Europe. They flocked to Jerusalem as pilgrims and defenders of Christianity. They believed that Jerusalem was a sacred city, and it needed to be protected from the Muslims. Their armies were combinations of infantry and cavalry. The heavily armored cavalry employed the tactic of charging time and again until the enemy line broke. The bulk of the force was trained infantry who fought to hold their positions. At the front of the army was footmen, backed up with minimal amount of inefficient, unprofessional archers. When the army marched, the knights were positioned strategically in the center, with the infantry surrounding, acting like a human shield to guard the horses. This tactic developed when the knights' horses were being targeted by arrows. Saladin, Sultan of Egypt and Syria. Saladin, the commander of the Muslim army, was born in a Kurdish family in Tikrit, in present-day Iraq. At a young age, Saladin began military training. Before long, he joined the army. 2 years later, a new caliph came to power, the pious and noble Nur al-Din. Saladin's father and uncle became confidants to the caliph. This special access to the caliph allowed Saladin to rise quickly in the army. Saladin also looked up to Nur al-Din as a mentor and supported Nur al-Din's quest to unify the Muslim lands. After conquering Egypt on 1169, Nur al-Din died, leaving no heirs. Only Saladin, his closest friend and trusted soldier, to take the reins of the government in Egypt. He, however, was determined to continue the goal of Nur al-Din, to unite the Muslims under one banner. Guy of Jerusalem. Guy was born in England to a noble family. At the age of 16, he and his brothers murdered a son of a local landlord, Patrick of Salisbury. Unfortunately, they were caught and banished from the country by the King of England, Harry II. Each brother followed his own path, and Guy journeyed to Jerusalem. Guy was a handsome man, but lacked graciousness or kindness. He soon made his way to the court and fell in love with Sibylla, daughter of King Baldwin IV, King of Jerusalem. She, however, only thought he was handsome, and was not taken in by his charm. But she was calculating and ambitious. When King Baldwin IV died, Raymond of Tripoli was to succeed him. Sibylla usurped the succession by crowning herself queen, and her love, Guy, King of Jerusalem. Broken compromise and origin of battle. Although hostilities had been mounting between the Muslims and Christians, the actual battle was triggered by the rash actions of the Lord of Kerak, Reynald de Chatillon, a bloodthirsty warlord. He was high-strung and ready to fight at any moment. Although there had been a truce, Reynald provoked Saladin by attacking a Muslim caravan returning from Cairo. He confiscated the goods, killed the guards, and captured the merchants. When Saladin demanded the goods and prisoners be returned, Reynald refused. Outraged, the Caliph prepared his army to march on Kerak. There Saladin met King Baldwin IV, and agreed to compromise that Reynald would be punished and there would be a new truce. However, after the death of King Baldwin IV, when Guy of Lusignan became king of Jerusalem, the compromise was disregarded, and conflict broke out between the two sides. Sum of battle. Saladin and his army attacked Tiberias, in retaliation to Guy when he broke the compromise. Saladin knew Guy would come to relieve the city, and would be forced into combat. King Guy was also determined to fight the Muslim army at Tiberias. The road to the fortified city was arduous and waterless. Raymond of Tripoli, who was an advisor to the king, tried to pursue Guy to reconsider his plan. He also suspected that Saladin was going to ambush the Crusaders. As the Crusader army passed through the narrow passage of Hattin, the Muslim troops attacked the rearguard. As sun set and night fell, Saladin's army harassed the Crusaders by harrying them with bows and arrows. At the night, some Crusaders came to Saladin and said, "Why do you wait? We are defeated." At dawn, the Latin soldiers, weary from a sleepless night, marched to meet the Muslims on the plains of Hattin. Guy's men were tired, thirsty, and desperate. When seeing the Sea of Galilee on the horizon, the infantry broke ranks as their thirst was dire. In the chaos, those who remained were encircled by Muslim cavalry. Those who were not slaughtered were captured. The knights who had remained with the rear with King Guy rallied at the western horn of Hattin. They charged 3 unsuccessful times into Muslim skirmishing horsemen. Once the knights were captured, Muslim victory was imminent. Aftermath. The Muslims successfully resolved the conflict by crushing the Crusader army and capturing the True Cross. Less than 200 soldiers escaped, including Raymond of Tripoli. Reynald de Chatillon was executed by Saladin. The battle lasted 1 intense day of fighting. Now the Latin army was spent, Saladin went to capture Jerusalem and other forts, turning the tide of European dominance in the Holy Lands. Conclusion. Throughout many centuries of East-West relations, conflicts and compromises have been a part of their shared history. The Battle of Hattin is a primary example of this shared history. It is a war fought between occupied and occupier, East and West, Muslim and Christian, an often complex and volatile conflict of mistrust and misunderstanding, which continues to plague our world today.